Hello, everyone, and welcome to another live podcast show edition of Ordinary People Doing Extraordinary Things. I'm your host, Carrie Roberts, and today my guest is Tony Frazier. Welcome to the show, Tony. Thanks for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So I found you on TikTok and Instagram because of your incredible creativity. But before we get into that, I want to kind of start from the beginning. You told me did you grow up in California?
Yeah, I was born in California, lived there for most of my life and everything. And so then recently just moved to Texas. So yeah.
And what were you like as a kid in California? Were you into the arts and photography and that sort of thing, or not that age?
Oh yeah, definitely. I was always doing something like my mom. So my mom and my dad, they homeschooled my brother and I. So she made sure we were always having some outlet. So we were playing the piano, building, doing origami. Then later on, after probably like I was working at a summer camp after freshman year in college, I started getting into photography a little bit because my dad and both my mom both, did photography, film photography. So.
Oh, so your whole family started doing it. And did you like being homeschooled?
No, at the time, like definitely didn't. I mean, there was parts where it was awesome, where it's like, okay, you get done with school. Like my mom was like, oh, you can finish your homework for the next day, and then you have that day off. So my brother and I would do that. But the social aspect, we kind of, we still, my mom would homeschool other kids too, so we would have kids around. But I did miss that school experience to an extent, even though we did later on charter school. We would my brother played for the basketball team, but like going to school. But I do appreciate it though, definitely.
And so as you kind of got into photography, I'm curious, towards the end of high school, as you're starting to think about college and work, were you interested in pursuing the kind of the creative arts and the photography and the video at that time, or no?
So when I was going to college, I actually was a piano performance major. So that's what I was doing freshman year. Yeah.
Wait, where did you go?
I went to La Sierra University in Riverside, California.
Nice. For piano performance.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wait, so was that okay? So did you know, okay, this is the kind of thing I want to do, or was it something you were just really great at? You had a scholarship, and that's the reason you went?
I guess it was a little of both. I did have a scholarship, and I ended up, because I learned by ear, and I was playing different classical music by like Beethoven and Bach by ear and everything. And so I was like, okay, well maybe this is something I should do. It was something I was really good at. But when you go and then you actually have to do like the lessons and the critical technical side of it, then I was like, I'm not as passionate about it as I thought I was. So yeah.
So did you finish the degree in that, or did you change to something else?
No, I switched to photography, and then when I was doing photography, I went to the Academy of Arts in San Francisco for a little bit, but art school is very, very, very expensive. So I figured I could do workshops and learn on my own for a lot cheaper. Not saying that people shouldn't go to art school, but this is just what I decided to do because, student debt and everything is crazy in our country. So, yeah.
Yes. It's interesting. You said piano. So I have a degree in dance.
Oh, nice.
So, yes, I have a BFA in dance. And it's interesting when you go to college for an art form. There's the greatness of you get to be in it all day and practice it, but there's a lot of technique and a lot of things that you have to do. Yeah. And sometimes that can be challenging. So I'm curious, when you decided, okay, I'm going to kind of teach myself some of this creativity, what did you teach yourself? How is that kind of different from the schooling that you had?
I guess there's like two different ways of doing it, because I feel like with school, you make those connections in networking. It's a lot easier, especially coming out of school, because then your professors know people and they can recommend you. But then at the same time, if you do it on your own, you can speed up the process, because even when I was teaching, I had taught myself a lot and did different tutorials and workshops. So when I was actually going to school, a lot of the stuff was kind of, not to say boring, it's just I learned it like a year or 2 years ago. And so when I had to do the basic stuff again, I was just like, oh, and then I'm spending thousands of dollars each semester to do something that I already know how to do. I was like, oh, let me do it this way and see what happens. So,
yeah. And I just want to share as well. We have Tiffany saying homeschool is not only interesting, but that she feels you also on what you're talking about, the creativity side. Yes, I think anyone that's in the art space totally understands that. So as you come out of college, so now you've had this kind of piano background, you're now doing kind of photography. Did you say to yourself, okay, this is what I'm going to do for a living? Or were you like, I'm going to go a different direction? How did you feel at that point?
So the crazy thing is, so after I decided, I still was somewhat about if I wanted to do piano or not. So instead of going to a 4-year and spending a ton of money, and I didn't do that great because I wasn't really focused. So I went to community college to do like piano still. And then one of the general ed classes I had to take was an art class. And so film photography was one of those. So I decided to take that. And that's when I just like fell in love with photography. And I was like, oh no, I want to do this. And even when the teacher's teaching about history or the technical aspect or in the film room, like I was loving every part of it without saying, oh man, I don't want to do this. And it was just like exciting. So from that point, I think it was like my third or second semester at the community college. And I was like, I really want to do this for the rest of my life.
And what year was this?
2004 or 5, I think.
Okay. So, photography has changed quite a bit since then. So at that point, was that something where you were like, okay, I want to do wedding photography. I want to do commercial photography. Did you have a direction you wanted to go in kind of that 2004, 2005 period?
I think I started off doing family pictures and I dabbled into like fashion a bit and everything. And I was like, oh, okay. Because at the time I wanted to be a fashion photographer, but I was like, well, family portraits, you get paid money. And to do that in fashion, sometimes it takes a lot to get into that industry. So I decided, okay, I'm going to do family portraits. And then it branched off into weddings and kid portraits and newborns and everything like that. So, the typical portrait photographer thing, pretty much.
And so I'm curious, as a photographer, how has your style changed and how have you adapted to the way photography has changed over the years? Because you have, people using Instagram, their phones are a very high level. How did you kind of adapt and change with all of this?
I guess, so for me, when I learned photography, I started figuring out that, because people would ask me, oh, you're a photographer, do you know how to shoot this? And I was like, no. So then I realized it was better to learn pretty much every single area of photography over the years so I could always have the opportunity to take a job no matter what. So even in the Instagram age, it's like people love Instagram, people love TikTok, Facebook and everything, but still people want those really high quality, like milky shots of their families and the sunset. And you can do those same photos with phones too as well. But you have to do a little bit more editing. But I mean, phones nowadays are like crazy. They're just as good as most cameras. But I always say it's always about the photographer, the person holding the camera, not the actual camera, because you can take a really good shot with a disposable camera too.
Yeah, it's really about the creator. I agree. And so you also do a lot of video work. Where did kind of your interest in video come into play, and how does that kind of couple with the photography work that you do?
So I kind of dabbled in video when I was in the fashion photography. I would do like different fashion short films. But the creative video that I'm doing now, I recently just started because of coronavirus, actually. And my other outlets were playing like, sports. And then also I would go salsa dancing like once or twice a week. But since both of those things got eliminated, I was like, I need something to challenge me, because those were two things that always challenged me and I was always trying to get better. So I was trying to find something that would challenge me even more. And so seeing the visual things like on people on TikTok, and my wife's like, you should try to do that. And I was just like, oh man, kind of thing. And it was scary because it's always scary trying something new, especially when you didn't know how to do it. But I can even tell, it's like I've learned so much in the 5 weeks that I've been doing it. And I think it does help that I understand photography and how to manipulate things in Photoshop and everything. So it makes the translation over to video work helps and makes it a little bit easier too. So.
Yeah, I also Jennifer says yes, salsa dancing. I'm on a Latin dance team, so I also love the salsa dancing.
Oh, nice.
Oh, so fun. Tiffany asked, do you also do nature photography as well?
I haven't. That's probably one area I haven't pushed as much. But when I lived in California, we lived in like the mountains, like near big trees in Yosemite area. So I would take photos of the waterfall. I did astrophotography a little bit, and little animals here and there. But I didn't really push it as hard as some of the other areas that I do.
So, like I was saying earlier on, I found Tony through TikTok and Instagram. Loved what you were doing, and I'm on TikTok, but I think I watch more than I actually post. And it started with it being Musically, where people kind of lip sync things to kind of dancing, to now people like yourself are bringing it to a whole other level. And at the end, Tony will give his stuff so you can follow him, but you had done some of these where like it looks like you're changing your shirts, or like you threw your kid in the air and they come down, but it's really, I mean, the editing of it, I know that takes a lot of time and work. So even though it's a 15-second video, but it's so on point and it's so well done. And I also love that you include your family in this. And so I'm curious, what is your creative process, whether you're doing photography or video? Do you have an idea in your head, or do you do something and play with it in the editing? How does it work for you?
So I feel like for photography, at least, it's a little bit more straightforward, because since I started off like doing photo manipulations in Photoshop, I can compensate. Like if I messed up on something, I'm like, oh, I'll just put a tree here or whatever to cover that up. With video, it's a lot harder. So I guess my overall process, like I have so many different ideas. My wife's always telling me I'm writing them down. And I usually write them down. I have like a little notebook. And then a lot of times I'm just sometimes I always try to find the right music that would go with the mood sometimes. So a lot of times I'll just be going through Spotify, just listening to different songs to help inspire me. And then when I get the idea, then I have to, especially if it's a loop, usually instead of shooting how the video starts, how I shoot it is usually how the video ends most times, or I start from the middle and shoot to make sure it's perfect. So I'll be sitting somewhere usually like 30 minutes to an hour sometimes, just like processing in my head how to start it and where to put everything and stuff. So it's a long process, and I'm sure it'll get easier over time since I'm kind of new to it, but yeah.
Yeah, I love it. And your wife also, she's I would say Instagram influencer, I guess is the term we want to use. And I know you do some of the photography for her as well. I just love your little family. You have 2 young kids. Can you talk about kind of how that started for your wife and how you kind of helped her? I mean, now you're building your brand on TikTok as well, but where that whole thing kind of came from?
So my wife, and it's funny, she likes the word blogger, because she's like, oh, I'm not an influencer, I'm a blogger. I share she's more about sharing, I guess, in her life. But how it started, she used to have a YouTube. So her and we met on Instagram, and she was living in New York and I was in California.
Wait, stop. Let's talk about the story first. Okay. Wait, did you like slide into her DM? Like, how did this work?
It was actually before Instagram had DMs, so we were just chatting under each other's pictures, kind of thing. But she liked one of my pictures first, and then I guess I liked one of hers back, and then we just started talking and chatting. And then we were friends for almost a year, and then eventually I stopped playing games, and I decided to ask her to be my girlfriend at the time, and then
And now we're here. I love this.
Yeah.
Okay. we had to ask that question. So go ahead, continue. So then from there, she had this YouTube channel, as you're saying.
Yeah. So when I met her, she was already because she used to have dreadlocks, and so she was doing her videos on how to take care of locks and everything. So she was already doing that. And then when she moved to California to be with me and everything, she started she wanted to move in a different direction. So she started doing like modeling with her clothes and everything. And it just started going. And at that time I was taking all her pictures for her and everything. And then it just started getting bigger for her. And then I felt like it really took off. Like it was going really well too in general. But when we had Kai, my son, then it just like skyrocketed. And yeah, so even now, like I'm her manager now, and all the pictures you pretty much see on her Instagram, she takes all of those. So I can't take credit for those. So she's a full blown photographer now as well. So
I love it. Jennifer says they are the best couple ever. I'm just meeting Tony today and I already think it's adorable because I love everything that you guys are doing online. I think that's great. You know, I think people don't always realize that there is a lot of work that goes into building a brand and building yourself online. And I love that the two of you work together on this, that you're supportive of her and what she's doing. And in a sense, you said earlier, you wanted to do fashion photography. And this is kind of like a way to scratch that itch a little bit, right?
Yeah. And I guess even for me, I kind of veered away from, I decided it was like after, you know, and it's not to say anything against anybody who's into fashion photography. Just for me personally, I felt it wasn't the right path for me to go and just what I wanted to do and how much, I don't want to sound like, just, I like to have more control of creating and everything. And so there's like, you know, just certain things I shoot and certain things I don't shoot and stuff. And if you're in the industry and people hire you, you have to shoot what they hire you to do. So I felt that, okay, if I pursue like I'm doing architecture photography for a career and then doing the video stuff to hopefully make that my main career, then it, you know, I have more control over what I do than, you know, kind of thing. So.
Yeah. Do you have, you know, since you've built up your wife's brand and now you're doing the same for yourself, do you have any advice for whether it's a personal brand or it's a company, ways that they can build it up on a social platform? If I know Instagram and TikTok has kind of been your bread and butter for the most part, but do you have any advice on how a person or a company could do that?
Yeah, honestly, because in the beginning, before I started doing the video, like my wife and I were so focused on building the audience, and because when you build a higher audience, more brands pay you more and so forth and so on. But I've come to realize, and one thing is always be consistent in what you do, and it doesn't matter about the numbers because it honestly just takes one person to see you. For instance, like you found me on TikTok and now I'm doing an interview, and it's like I only have like 4,000 on TikTok or whatever and stuff, and it's nowhere near to like a lot of people, but it still is like, you know, opportunities will come as long as you're consistently being creative. So for anybody who's trying to build a personal brand or company, is just be consistent and stick with it no matter how tired or exhausted, or even if you don't get as much like reach from people saying, oh, this is awesome, just keep doing it because you love it.
I 100% agree. And I love that because your wife does have the numbers now and yours is climbing as well. And I love that you're saying it's not about that. I totally agree with you. It is about creativity. It is about consistency. And I think it's a lot about making sure that what you put out resonates with yourself, right? Yes. Because I'm sure at this point, and a lot of people have experienced, you start to get people to reach out that want to partner with you or want to do some sort of deal with you. And how do you kind of maneuver that to say, okay, I want to make sure it fits with who we are and what we value versus, okay, this is just going to be, you know, exposure or financial gain?
Yeah. And that's the thing. So with my wife, especially since, you know, with our partnership, I always run everything by her and discuss like if she's into the brand, if this is what she wants to do. And it's like, you don't have to, it's like money isn't everything. So it's like, just even if somebody offers you millions of dollars, but if you don't agree with what the brand represents, or if you just don't feel like it's a good fit, or if there's too much cheese in something or whatever, it's like, it's not bad to say no because there will be more opportunity. So you just have to be able to say that I'm going to say no to not take every single thing that comes to you kind of thing, you know? So.
You know, Tony, again, we're just meeting today really for the first time besides email. And I love the way you talk about your wife, first of all. I love the way you're talking about your passion, and you have such a good understanding of what it means to build a brand, to be creative, to kind of run a business as well. Where do you think all of that comes from for you? Do you think it comes from the way you were raised? Do you think it's experience? Where does all of that come from for you?
I think it's a mixture of a lot. Definitely comes from both my parents. My dad, he's worked for himself for like years, and he's an architect. My mom, she's worked for herself, and they're very disciplined. They always push my brother and I to always try to be the best that we can be in everything. And even if you make mistakes, just keep going. Then also too, I have friends like my friend Eric. He's in the social media with the influencer and blogger industry. I've learned a lot. Like, he's passed knowledge on to me, and I've learned a lot. Also, my wife's friend Lexi, she's passed on knowledge, and she worked in marketing for companies. So that plus your own experience. So it's like a mixture between being raised that way, having really amazing friends who share like really good knowledge, and then learning from experience and your mistakes too. So it's like a nice combination of everything.
Yes, no, I love it. And I think you're doing an amazing job. For people that are creative, so then the other side, maybe whether they're doing it for themselves or for a company, do you have any suggestions of how they can, especially during this time, how they can kind of land a client or a role where they get to be creative and they're valued for what they do?
Based on my experience, I mean, you definitely can reach out and go after it, but a lot of times too, it's like, I don't know. It's like there's like several different things you can do. Is like it's just said, you can go and reach out to brands, but a lot of times I feel that brands, they'll find you because there's literally tons of marketing agents everywhere, kind of thing. Because there's so many different companies. So it's like, if you're a company, as long as you're building and creating and always showcasing and putting out new stuff, somebody's going to find you. And yeah, definitely pitch yourself too. Like, if you can get, I know we can't really do face-to-face meetings and stuff, but set up an email and just make it quick, straight to the point. Because a lot of times, I know personally, when like I see emails and they're like super long, and then I'm like, oh man, I got to read through all this. So if you can make a pitch in like 2 minutes, like, hey, so-and-so, my name is so-and-so, I'm so-and-so, here's my work, and have the work like right there, kind of thing. At least they'll see it right there instead of linking out of the email or something. But you don't want to make your file size too big on the email. So
yeah, I mean, it's the same thing you were saying earlier, right? Be creative consistently.
Yeah.
It's so funny because this, everybody wants things so quickly. They want followers quickly. They want to build their brand quickly. And I work in branding and marketing as well. And I think I always tell people, I'm like, it's not something that happens overnight. A brand is something you feel over time. How do people feel about you? How do they feel about your company? How do they interact with them? And that's consistent over time. So it makes me excited to hear you're saying that as well.
Yeah, definitely. Because even though like with the video and doing the TikTok, even though I just started, it wasn't like a just start, because the past experience of learning and understanding photography and how lighting works and how to mask and remove stuff. So that 14 plus years of photography and other technical experience made me learn video, made it a lot easier and quicker to learn video. So some people was like, oh, you just started learning video? It's like, yes, but no. At the same time,
you're like, I've kind of been doing it. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, yeah, like you said, it's like we live in the age where everybody wants everything so quick, and videos are like 8 seconds, and if it's over 8 seconds on TikTok, they're like, oh, this is too long, kind of thing, and this is crazy. So yeah.
Is there any equipment or software that you're using as a creator that you're really loving right now, that you think people should test out if they're in this space?
I use a Sony A7 III, and I love the camera. I've always shot with Nikons early on, but then after a while, it's like the cameras are huge, and I know a lot of people like big cameras because it makes them look more professional, and that I was that person too. But the Sonys, they're a lot smaller and they're more compact, and just like how much power and everything is in the camera. I know so many people will debate about it, but me, Sony works great for me. The lenses work great, and just everything, and it's just everything's like quick and easy. So.
Is there any type of photography or video that you would like to create or do that you haven't done yet?
Oh yeah. You mean like just like a project or anything?
Yeah, like a project or an opportunity or a place or a type of thing you'd like to do that you haven't done yet?
Oh yeah, I have tons. I mean, I don't know if I should share because then it will be take away the surprise. But I mean, I have like like I said, I have that book with all my notes and just different ideas. But I definitely want to implement my family a lot more into it, and because my son, he loves when we do the videos, and then he gets like super excited and he's like ready to act and do everything and stuff like that. So yeah, there's tons of stuff. I definitely would love to explore Dallas more and use Dallas as some of the videos, but due to the Corona thing going on and everything, so it makes it a little hard right now. So.
Yeah, and you were telling me earlier you have 2 kids. They're 2 and 6 months is your daughter, you said, right? How do you see you and your wife kind of teaching them about creativity and kind of blending them into more of what you do on an everyday basis?
I guess so with my parents, they were never the and again, everybody has different things, but my parents were never the parents who would say, you have to play the piano or you have to do this. They were more like, whatever you want to do, we'll support it kind of thing. So I think I'm going to definitely take that same approach. Like definitely with my son, he loves singing and playing the piano right now, and he loves building and so, but then he likes helping cook. So it's just kind of like, okay, well, we'll see, like wherever direction, he wants to go, I'll happily support him in his creative direction. Same with my daughter too, as well. And it's just like, if we can afford it, we'll do it for them.
Yeah, I was raised the same way. It was always about like do what makes you happy, but also make sure you can, support yourself financially as well.
Yeah.
And I think it's really good parenting to be able to support your kids and what they're excited about. So it's wonderful to hear that you're trying to do that as well. For anyone that is maybe not as skilled or talented as you, but wants to kind of create these moments for their family with their kids in video or in photography, do you have any like easy suggestions of things that they could do to kind of build that portfolio for them to keep just for their own memories?
Oh, so even like creative video or photography, honestly, all you really need is your phone, because even some people that I'm friends with on TikTok, like they're doing creative videos and they're just using their iPhones and everything. And so it's just, you just have to want to try to learn. That's the thing. Like I know a lot of people, just like you said earlier, want things to come instantly, but it does take practice. It does take time. And even like even some of my videos, even though they're 10 seconds, it usually takes like 5 hours to shoot, edit and everything and stuff. And it's like 5 hours for 8 seconds, but it's just like, yeah, just use what you have. Like you don't have to go buy a $4,000 camera or like the latest technology. Just start with what you have and slowly build to where you need to be. And there's plenty of video editing apps like on the phones and everything where you can edit videos.
Now, where can people connect with you or see your great work? If you can share with us some of your social media handles, your website, whatever you'd like to share for people to check out. Because if you haven't seen it, I really like it. I think it's really well done. And again, I love the family aspect of how you include them as well.
So also thank you. And my Instagram and my TikTok are both Seeing Tony, SEEING Tony. That's right there.
Tony, yes.
Yeah. And then my website is FrazierMediaHouse.com.
And Tony does stuff for his family and for his wife, but you also do a lot of, you said, architectural photography, and you do a lot of like drone footage. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're really, like you said earlier, you're trying to do and learn a little bit of everything, and your work definitely showcases that as well. Yeah. The last question I like to ask all of my guests, Tony, is what is one word or quote or mantra that you try to live by every single day?
Make the ordinary extraordinary.
Are you serious? Or are you just saying that because of this show?
No. I didn't realize. Yeah.
I was like, we're called ordinary people doing extraordinary things, and you just like, let me do the tagline. That's hilarious. So what does that mean to you?
Oh, so because my wife, she helped me come up with that, because she's like, because I was trying to figure out, I was like, oh, so-and-so. And she's like, well, you make the ordinary extraordinary. I was like, oh, yeah. So that's been lately my taglines. And I had a brain freeze or something, forgetting that's a show. Sorry.
No, it's so funny how my dad always says likes attract likes. And it's so funny, like as you're talking, I'm like, yes, I agree with so much what you're saying. I was raised in a similar way. And then you say that line and I'm like, that's what I say all the time. how that kind of works out and you meet people. I agree. I think that's why I was drawn to your work, Tony. You know, you're making here I am at home with my kids. But let's make it fun. What if they wore different outfits? What if I threw them here? It looks like I did that, and then I caught them. And I think you're right. It's how do you take something that's so simple that we do every day and make it beautiful? And that's a lot for me of this show. There are so many amazing people around us every day doing and being great. And then let's share that. And so I love that you're doing that with your work, Tony. I congratulate you. I'm excited to see a lot more of what you and your family do, especially as your kids get older and how they get involved as well. I also want to encourage you to start playing piano on your TikTok. Now that I know that that's a thing, I feel like that would be pretty cool. So I thank you so much, Tony, for your time and for sharing your insight and your story with us today. And I look forward to seeing more.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.